Hello everyone. Welcome to another video on Syllabus Explained for Public Administration Optional. And in this video, we are going to talk about Unit 6 of Paper 1 Administrative Theory, that is the unit of Administrative Law. So, whenever we talk about the syllabus given by UPSC, while it does give us a broad scheme of things to be studied under a particular unit, but it is devoid of the finer details. Hence, it is important to read between the lines. To break down the syllabus to the micro topic level, because in the mains examination, it is all about the micromanagement of the topic, because the questions are not phrased or based on a macro topic itself. Rather, it is based on a micro topic or some key dimensions related to the micro topic. So unless we get a grip on these micro topics, it becomes very difficult, one, to prepare in a comprehensive, exhaustive and all-round manner. Also, further difficult to write answers and score marks. Hence, these syllabus explained sessions are to decode the syllabus up to the micro topic level, so that we have a 360-degree visibility of every unit and every topic. So let us say what UPSC gives us when it comes to the unit of administrative law. A fairly crisp syllabus, the meaning, scope and significance of administrative law. So recall, when we studied public administration, the first unit, it had a meaning, scope and significance part. That means the scholarly views and the various dimensions. Then Dicey, A.V. Dicey, a scholar, and his seminal contribution to the administrative law, the concept and manifestation both of delegated legislation, the typology, the positive delegated legislation, negative delegated legislation, so on and so forth, and again the concept of administrative tribunals and their practice. Okay, obviously all of this has to be seen with a India lens as well, to understand, to give examples, to link and interlink. So here the PUBAD actually it begins from the unit of accountability and control, and here it begins to shed its core theoretical ideas when it comes to limited study of the subject for our exam, and it gets into the practical domain in a very hardcore level. Okay, so while on the face of it we just have 4 broad topics, but there are certainly some things that don't meet the eye, right? So there are things more than what meets the eye. So let us see the micro details. So when it comes to the meaning and definition, nature and scope, like I said, there will be scholarly views, various perspectives, various dimensions, but sources. You see, administrative law comes across as one of the branch of the law as a discipline itself. And then when it is cased into the ecosystem of administration, it becomes administrative law. That is but a simplistic understanding. Or I can say that the law governing the administration. Hence, the sources of administrative law is important. Dicey, of course, his view, criticism, and how administrative law has grown over the years. In that, we will have to look at the concept of the growth of administrative law, not just from an Indian lens, but we will have to adopt a comparative orientation, at least vis-a-vis England and the US. Of course, once we understand that, we will have to look into how administrative law is important, or why is it important, and the future, how it is evolving. Okay. Moving further, the concept of delegated legislation. The very concept, legislation and administrative action, the need for delegated legislation and the reasons for its growth. What are the various types, advantages, disadvantages? The control element over delegated legislation. Remember, something that we linked with accountability and control unit as well. What are the parliamentary safeguards? Again, linking to the accountability and control. Judicial safeguards, special safeguards, and the conceptual ideas of difference between administrative law and constitutional law. Further, the elements in which the administrative law manifests itself, the administrative adjudication, and in that how functions, various functions of whether the acts of commission, the acts of control, review, right, as a concept, judicial review as a concept, and judicial review of administrative action, because all of them have strings connected to administrative law. And with that emerges the concept of ombudsman. Again, something that we linked it with the unit of accountability control. Remember Lokpal, Lokayukta? If you haven't seen that video, see that video of accountability and control unit syllabus explained as well. Okay, and therefore you'll be able to connect the dots. Similarly, the tribunals in India, and how administrative adjudication tribunals and for service matters, okay, for other matters, and the legislative backbone behind it. Here I have given some examples for you in terms of certain tribunals. Of course, you will have to look at the tribunals in news, but to explain these concepts, the tribunalization and the coming up of more tribunals, reasons for coming up of tribunals, how do they operate, these tribunals can act as a good sample. The Central Administrative Tribunal, State Administrative Tribunal, Water Dispute Tribunal, Armed Forces Tribunal, NGT, National Green Tribunal, Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. Of course, this list is not exhaustive, but a sample list to look at and explain and link with the concept of tribunals. Moving further, the tribunals themselves and their analysis as a concept, as an idea, as institutions. The recent merging of tribunals, for example, there was this Tribunals Reforms Act 2019, right? What do we mean by tribunal, appellate tribunal and other such authorities? How does tribunals differ from regular courts? What are the advantages, disadvantages, the safeguards against those disadvantages, and the recent changes or the recent appraisal of the working? So a very contemporary, application oriented unit, yet with strong conceptual rooting aligned with it. After administrative tribunals, we practically exhaust the content of the units. Tiny unit with a tiny footprint, but nonetheless important. So on an average 20 marks out of 400 in paper 1, right? The highlight topics include the conceptual mooring. See, the question is focusing more on the conceptual aspects, the meaning, scope and significance. So the conceptual understanding is half the battle won when it comes to this unit. Further, when you look at delegated legislation, dicey and administrative tribunal, there are less questions related to it. However, they remain important. If you see very carefully, I have put in a category called abstract. The abstract would be wherein no subtopic can be effectively pinned to the question, but the question relate to the unit as such. That will entail a cocktail of various concepts given in the unit contributing to the answer. Okay. Now let us look at the placement of this. Again, largely you will see part A, only some part in part B, very rarely. Okay, very rarely, but a compulsory question. Nonetheless, the footprint is less when it comes to the marks, but the way it is coming in question number 1, see, this is a key trend to be noted, that at least one question, okay, can fall from this particular unit, and that too in the compulsory one. So you can't leave it, but you can prepare it better based on these micro topics. They may seem a lot, but it's a very tiny unit, okay, can be easily understood. Also, the high value area, the meaning, scope, significance can in a probable scenario take care of this unit for you, right? Now let us look at the sources. While we do have the usual sources, because as examples, as other things, second ARC will contribute, the conceptual moorings can be derived from IGNOU material and Mohit Bhattacharya. And of course, just like I gave the example of the Tribunal Reforms Act, the contemporary issues and websites related to legal matters like live law. Right? If you will Google live law, administrative law, you will find great articles, right? So they can easily be incorporated into your studies. So with this, the unit was tiny, yet we have tried to decipher it and threadbare, decipher it threadbare in the sense that to look at all plausible dimensions for this particular unit. I'll see you in another video with another unit of public administration, and we'll explain it as part of our syllabus explained. Thank you.